Hi everyone, Mira Raven here, and welcome to the Black to Business Show. I am really excited for our guests. And I apologize, by the way, that it's been a little bit of time since I have put up a Black to Business episode. I had a lot of things I had to kind of get through. I just moved to a new place, just a lot of transitional stuff. So I had to sort of take a step back for a second, but I've been working really hard, finding lots of amazing guests, meeting a lot of amazing people. So I am really excited to have our guests on tonight. One of the things and one of the reasons I have this guest on is I feel that, as a musician, I really think that jazz music is one of the most amazing, most brilliant accomplishments that Black people have done. I mean, there's tons of accomplishments that we've made, but jazz is one of those things that I think is kind of underestimated. We underestimate the power of jazz. We underestimate the power of music. And so I'm really excited to have our guests on today because they are not only a musician, but they've been a professor. They've taught all over the world. They've taught in Turkey and Italy. They're an author of several books. They're a member of the Jazz Education Network. They're recipient of the NEA grant for composition. I mean, honestly, I feel like I could go on and on. They're recording artists. And so this is really Black excellence at its best. So I'm going to get this thing kicked off here because I just can't wait to get them up here. So let's get through this intro and let's get Black to business. Black to business. We're a family, melanated we need to breathe, need to see the truth from wisdom. The diamonds hiding beyond our pain, our name, our light, our flight. We're a family, melanated we need to grow, need to know, need to glow, need to go. Black to business. Black to business. All right, you guys. Again, welcome to the Black to Business Show. I am your host, Mira Raven. And if you are watching the show right now, no matter where you are, check in with us, write something in the comments, say hello, make yourself known. Again, the Black to Business Show is all about community. So it's about discussion. It's about connection. So, this is not about everyone being in their own little bubble, right? Connect with the other people in the room, other people who are watching this. Say hello. Even if it's something where you're watching this after the fact and you're watching the replay, right? Leave something in the comments. Let us know how you feel. Be a part of the conversation, right? Because we all have something to bring, and that's what this is all about. We all have something to bring here. So today we are bringing you Donovan Mixon, again, university professor at Berklee College of Music. He has taught in Turkey. He's taught in Italy. He has written several books. He is an amazing person. So I'm going to show a video. He's been so gracious to share this video that I think will really kind of give you an idea of who this person is and what they've done and the amazing things that they've accomplished. So we're going to show that first, and then we're going to get him up here. So here is Donovan Mixon's story up until now.
Hi, my name is Donovan Mixon. Welcome. If we're meeting for the first time, I'm happy to see you here. This is my story so far. Yeah, that's me, playing the guitar solo with the Great Black Music Ensemble at Logan Center last year. And that's the great Wadada Leo Smith conducting. I am a world traveler, having performed in 12 to 15 countries to date. I like to think of myself as a citizen of the world. In this video, I'd like to share some of my music with you. Some years earlier, Culmination, scored for chamber orchestra and jazz rhythm section, was the piece for which I won an NEA for jazz composition. Hybrid Project took on a more Western vibe since I returned stateside. Check out our performance of my tune Finding Center at a music festival in Chicago. Here's Hybrid Project Chicago again, featuring my friend and jazz giant, Willie Pickens. May he rest in peace. It was a great gig at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. Now for something different. Let me share my composition, The Dance of Life Suite, score for piano, clarinet, flute, violin, and cello. Here's an excerpt from a rehearsal. You can find the full piece on SoundCloud. As a lifelong teacher, I've conducted ear training clinics to students all over the world. My text, Performance Ear Training, published by Advanced Music, has been in print since the year 2000. I have always been the creative type. When my first novel, I Got a Handle on It, came out, I was described as an ambidextrous crossover artist. I Got a Handle on It was published by Cinco Puntos Press. The story, sometimes expressed in verse, hits upon themes of illiteracy, institutional racism, and the school-to-prison pipeline. I ended up scoring many of the spoken word pieces to tracks. So now that you're all caught up, thanks for watching. Please like and share this video, and be sure to check in with me on December 1st, 2020.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I'm excited to have him up here. Let's get him up here, Mr. Donovan Mixon.
Hey.
Yes. Hi,
Hi, Mira.
Donovan.
Hi,
How are
Mira.
you?
I'm good. I'm good. You?
I'm good. I'm good. It is such a pleasure to have you on the Black to Business show.
Yeah,
So,
my pleasure.
so I mean, there's so much to uncover here. There is so much here. I kind of want to just talk about again, kind of how did you come to do all? I mean, when you see people that come to do all these amazing things, you always wonder, okay, everybody starts out as a seed, right? We all start out as little seeds, and we grow, and you just never know how far and how big and how reaching your branches are gonna go. And I feel
True.
like you're a big tree,
True.
So how did you what were the things that as you were growing up, what were the things that you feel really fertilized you, right? Really made you grow in a way that supported um your success.
Yeah, that's a good. The seed is a great analogy because, yeah, I like many people, I would thank my parents for encouraging me
Mhm.
and telling me that I could accomplish whatever I put my mind to, and that education was the key. That was to getting out, meaning getting out of the underserved community in which I grew up in, getting out of those circumstances. That education was really my only shot. Going to school and getting good grades and pursuing opportunities and believing in yourself. And so I had that going for me. Didn't have the material kind of things that some others may enjoy in terms of inheritance and things like that. But I did have a strong foundation of encouragement and positive energy from my folks. It's also an encouragement and criticism at the same time.
Yeah, and it sounds like, I mean, it sounds like you had a good family foundation. Like it sounds like you had both of your parents
Yeah,
were
we
involved in
yeah.
your.
Well, we were yeah. We both my parents were there. My father, not he less so involved in the day to day. I didn't have the daily conversations like I have with my son now. We didn't have that. He was we were poor and he worked all the time and he suffered. I realized he really suffered for that and
Yeah.
health wise in all kinds of ways. But he was determined to raise his kids as well as my mom, and they hung in there and to keep us safe. And I realized later how perhaps terrified they were for their black son. As I got older, uh, how terrified they were that something would happen because of the kind of circumstances we lived in in America, particularly. And but they were quite smart. They weren't formally educated people at all. My father couldn't write or read. My mom maybe the tenth grade, so she could read and write. In fact, the last job I remember her having was being a teacher's aide. So she worked in an elementary school where I had attended, and I witnessed many of her former students come back to pay homage to her and say, "Oh, Mrs. Mixon, you saved my life," that kind of thing, because she
Mm.
was, very good with kids and as I said, a teacher's aide. So she's right there sitting next to them, helping them with their reading and basic math stuff. So anyway, yeah, that's what I believe. That's what helped me to believe in myself and to keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that is so. I think it's so important. It's something that what stands out about what you said is the fact that it wasn't, it wasn't, again, it wasn't material things or money, right? And I think that oftentimes when you look at some of the most prolific, you know, um, musicians, artists, writers. I mean, really, anybody who's done terrific things. A lot of people have there's always sort of this there's adversity, there's struggle, but then there's also sort of that glimmer of hope and that sort of like those tools that allow a person to persevere past those adversities and past those struggles. And I think that that's
Hmm.
something that in our daily sort of lives, especially today, we're in a very hyper materialistic world. I would say we're
Certainly, certainly.
overly, bombarded with materialism and devices and technology um and so I don't think we realize, especially my generation, um, how much we actually do have at our disposal in
Right, right.
relation to prior generations. And we need to take advantage of that, I think.
It's this manifests in terms of in ways too, like I think lack of curiosity, and a devaluation of the arts in a way people more are interested in the personalities in of the arts in the persons themselves and the gossip and things about these artists, but the work is not as valued as when the people are not as curious, and I feel that more strongly in this later part of my life, after having lived outside of the country for several years and having the experience of reverse, say, culture shock coming back to America, and I could see my own country more starkly in that way. Whereas in Europe, I I found, yeah, people much more curious, even if the person isn't conspicuously famous. They're curious about what you do, and they'll read about it and pursue it and look at it, and or go look at your work, or go hear your work, or experience your work. Uh, but here it is a lot of commerciality involved, and about the persons, the personalities, and things, and so yeah, it makes it particularly more challenging, I think, for the artists in America. Yeah, I mean, not
Yeah.
that my all of my European friends and artists are like just having a very easy time of it. It's not that at all, but there is an element of that. I did experience the contrast between the two. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
I think that says something about, definitely says something about culture and how,
Hmm.
do you believe that culture um sort of, how can I say this, that culture influences and immensely impacts the ideas and thoughts of those who are partaking in it. So in other words, American culture, right? I think that, what I see is that those ideas and ways of being and ways of perspectives, right, of art and of artists are derived from the the culture, or derived from ideas that are drawn from the culture here in America? Or do you think it's something else that creates this sort of attitude towards art and towards artists?
Well, I think it's the culture of America, which is very much capitalist and in the economic aspect of life, and concern with money and fame and things like that, and that, yeah, that impacts the arts. It our And needless to say, the technology is robbing our capacity for concentration and focus, and we're constantly distracted, and so that, the arts, one thing the arts need is patience and interest, deep concentration, focus from the consumers of the arts. And so I think America, we suffer from a deficit in many of these aspects, so yeah, our culture is affecting how we consume art and how we bring art into ourselves.
Do you think that there are things like, what do you think we can do. I mean, because the way that I guess my perspective is too that I agree with everything that you just said, and I also feel like as a younger artist, I try to think about what ways can I engage with the culture and with my generation to bring about these ideas and preserve this, preserve, not only preserve jazz, because to me I feel
Right.
like jazz is a very intellectual music, but it's also a very spiritual music. It's not just about it's heady, right? But it's also very spiritual and very intuitive and very so it's not like it's just about, like, if you were to think about calculus, right? Like it's a very heady intellectual thing, or but at the same time it's like jazz is philosophical.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
both
such a mixture of subjects.
mind and emotion.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's the confluence of mind and emotion, and it's definitely intellectual, but it's also quite emotional, and one can analyze solos and compositions, and you always find that. And we've heard musicians who they perform and depend, let's say, 75% on emotion in their in the execution of their art, and or 90%, let's say that. And maybe they will have some success with that, but it's really in all in arts, you want mind and emotion, and you want more, you want some the intellectual with the emotional, oneness made between the two, that makes art successful. So I think has, per se, jazz has a great potential to reach more people. Excuse me, my keyboard, hit the keyboard. Uh, has this uh, wonderful potential to reach people and affect people in a great way. But we do live in a society that's very commercial, and money is the mover and the shaker of our. And what can we do? We need more education, music education, arts education in the schools, and made as a requirement. And the trend seems to have been pushing arts out and then bringing them back in, through private companies and things like that, instead of it just being integrated in the curriculum as it was when I was in school. We every school had a every elementary school had a music teacher. Had a music teacher who did the band and the different ensembles. Had me a couple of music teachers. And they had, but the trend has been to leave that out, and particularly in like a lot of charter schools, uh, they may not have a band, they may not have music and art and so forth there. So naturally that would have the natural effect, what you would think. Yeah. So I think education is the key.
Yeah, and so on that, I want to bring up this slideshow that I have with some pictures. Um let's see here. Um and I would say that I feel like, one question I want to ask you as well is, what do you think that the do you think that education being left out of the classroom, do you think that that is something that has been done deliberately, or do you think that why do you think that they're doing that, if you had to give your best speculation?
My best speculation is that the arts create promotes critical thinking, and critical thinking doesn't go well with the kind of system that we live in, because you see what's happening, how easily the population is moved and fooled by fake news, as it is. Um, and we have a diminished capacity in the terms of critical thinking. And so that works very well in a commercial society, capitalist commercial, heavily capitalist commercial society, and political society is political situation where the money can get funneled to the higher ups and to the 1% very easily, and we don't have the capacity to really critically see and analyze and you see is many people are delusional in the way they're thinking and swayed by these crazy theories and so forth. So it has that effect. I think it, unfortunately, but there are people working every day, individuals working every day to fight against that. And the teachers at the school where my son goes, high school, are very good and working. I see their curriculum is working against that. But you see it in many schools and cities. Uh, it's a struggle for them.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I mean, and I think I agree with you. Because as a, I don't work in the school system as a teacher, but I do work with children who go to that, that are part of the system, whether it's public school, charter school, or private schools.
Hmm.
And even with no matter what school system it is, I notice um this overarching idea that that again a lot of the students they'll kind of there's a certain behavior that they'll have where they will want me to give them the answers, and
Oh
for me
yeah,
to just
yeah,
give them the answers and just say
yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
and not actually think. It's like they want me to just have them repeat, give them the answer so that they can regurgitate the answer back and just memorize it. And it's all about memorization. And I even realized this going through, I'm a 90s kid, so I went through sort of the the education system, and I had, even with myself, I was lucky to have a decent education, but even still, even with the education I had, I realized, I'm thinking back and I'm like, I learned about all these different things in school, but it's like I don't remember any of those things. Like it's
Hmm.
basically like it was a waste. Feels like it was a waste of time because I spent all this time learning all these things, but none of those things were retained. And I noticed this about students is that I have to continually review information with them because they have sort of have a trained way of learning in which they will absorb the information,
Hmm.
hold it for a certain period of time, and then it's gone. And I have to not start over because there's still some remnants of what I taught them
Hmm.
last week or the week before. But I noticed it's a pattern that they'll learn something, and then it's basically they dump it. And I've noticed this with myself. I'll learn something and then it'll be gone and I'll dump it,
Hmm.
unless I make the concerted effort to make connections. And that's the other thing that I noticed about students is that they don't there's no integration of the information. It's like you're taught all this information in a compartmentalized way, so then you don't understand how it all connects, which makes it even harder to remember it and
Hmm.
harder to make sense of it, because then you're just memorizing a bunch of facts
Yeah.
and you have no idea what the context is, why it's important, and none
Hmm.
of that. You just know you have to learn it and you have to do what they say and you have to obey. And that's what I get from the school system is it doesn't teach, as you said, doesn't teach children how to critically think. It teaches them how to obey. It teaches them how to imprint the information that they want them to imprint, and it teaches them to regurgitate that information without actually bringing in the critical thinking aspect of it, or bringing in
True.
this sort of this is my perspective. There's no individual perspective. It's all group think, and it's all sort of, yeah, like you said. And then of course as adults, that is then continued on into being employee in a company, and they're training you, and they're creating their culture, which is, in other words, they're, you know, it's just back to going back to school, where they're saying, this is what we want you to learn. We've
Yeah, you're being
indoctrinated you.
trained. Yeah, trained to be
Right.
cogs in a wheel in a system.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you can
So,
plug in and do what you're told, and that's that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
critical thinking. No, no.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, but I want to also bring up, I've brought up your your book here, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about that, and how that connects to what we are talking about here, because I know that some of the things you mentioned about your book have to do with the um what was it called, the what was it, school to prison pipeline, was
Yeah,
that?
that's one way. One way to speak of it. Yeah, and it came out of an experience to where I was the origin of this story came out of a real life experience where I was a public school teacher for about 3 years, and there was I was teaching music, and there was a student in my study hall class named Tim, and he was kind of a rough guy, a rough tumble guy, and it wasn't parented very well. And I was a very young teacher, maybe 23, something like that, and he was only maybe 5 years younger than me, something like that, or 6 years. But at that time of life, that's still enormous. But and so I saw him every day in study hall, and we had it was he became I became fond of him, and I tried to at least give him my perspective on things when I could, to help him think about what he's saying or what he's contemplating doing and so forth. And so it was an incident that happened where he came and insulted me in the class, and I had to keep him out of after school and talk to him, and that out of that out of that, I wrote a short story, and then years later, I workshopped the short story. And and this the after the argument and the altercation, we he came back the next what was it was after the summer, and he came back and he had thought about what had happened, and he came back and shook my hand and looked at me and said, "Thank you, if you need anything, And but and so I wrote a short story about that. And then years later, I was working in a writers group, and I just workshopped the story. And as I workshopped the story, the second time I brought it in, someone said, Donovan, this is a novel like that. And I said, Bing, and they gave me the idea that, yeah, this is a novel, and I just expanded it. So I had more or less the beginning and the end is more or less the same, and I just wrote out what happened over the summer. Imagine what happened over the summer to Tim that accounted for his having this kind of change of heart and thinking when he came back to school in the fall. And
Hmm.
so it became a full length novel. Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
That is so interesting, and that sounds really cool. So this was sort of a fiction book, but it was based off of a real
Oh
experience. Is that
yeah, yes.
correct?
It had its genesis, in real life, and I've heard other novelists say that all the characters. I had heard this before. All the characters are me in some form or the other. And now I understand what they mean, because all the characters are me in different ways, and or or a composite of two or three people I've known, and you write what you know, basically,
Mm-hmm.
and things, incidences of things that happen in my life, and or in combination with other folks' lives, things that you write what you know. So it it's yeah, it was successful, critically successful, sold some books, and I'm proud of it. Actually, I got my publishing back, and so now I'm after I finish this current project, I'm thinking I'm going to repackage it and requery it to another publisher.
That's great. I mean, like,
Hmm.
good for you for, for taking your public, because I always hear people talking about, the importance of, owning as much of the rights to your own stuff, your publishing, with music, they talk about that. Like,
Yeah,
keep your
yeah,
publishing. And
yeah. I can get a
I would
better
assume it's the
deal.
same.
Well,
Right.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
feel I can get a better deal. So, but still, I'm very still grateful to the company Cinco Puntos Press who read it and said, yeah, and they thought it was a strong, good story, and
Yeah.
so it got some attention, so that's good.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks like it
Hmm.
did. I mean, you had all these reviews, and you
Yeah,
can see you've got these awards,
yeah.
that you received for it,
Hmm.
and so obviously this book was amazing. But I also think I agree with you in terms of I think it's a great thing that you are going to republish it, because I think that there's definitely an audience of people out there that need to read this book.
Oh
And
yeah.
I kind of want to, I don't want to give away too much of the plot, but I'm just kind of, I'm curious, what are some of the things, could you kind of give us a little bit of an
Things that
idea
happen.
of some of the things that maybe he learns, or some of the things that, yeah, the things
Okay.
that
Well,
he comes across.
the idea of the character, the idea was to show Tim. Tim, is a young brother in a city, and not unlike many that we see on the news, and that may getting into trouble and things. And I wanted to show him close up, so show his life, his character, and his life close up, so people will understand. Tim had he lives in an apartment. He lives with his family. He has a mom and dad, his sister, his uncle. He has people and teachers that care about him. He's worried about his life. He's trying to figure out things. He's immature because he's a teenager. So he makes how it happens that he makes a series of bad decisions that gets him into trouble, in spite of having a younger sister, maybe 2 years younger, who actually saves him from the worst. And he had an uncle, his sister, and his uncle, where his father wasn't very very functional at all. But his mom, she was there for him best she could. They both weren't very functional, but fortunately, the uncle and the sister were present for him, and you meet his friends and how they go to the party, and get they drink, and they devise a plan to go into someone's, and the friend of theirs liquor store, and they're gonna get some more, and he's trying to be cool, but he doesn't want to he doesn't want to thwart the plan. It's all kind. It gets really into the stories of what happens to potentially to some teenagers, and how they uh, piece by piece could get into trouble. And I won't tell exactly what happens to him, and I'll say he lives. And
He lives to
he
tell
does
the
live.
tale.
He does live. Yeah, he does live, and just so though, and is
Yeah.
very it's lucky. So
Yeah.
it gives a close up view of a life, and and I myself in a sense was in it as the teacher, the teacher who had the which set the story into motion, and that teacher played a role in his life, as well, trying to help him. Yeah.
Now, I always find that as a teacher, I've noticed that the students, I've reflected on this quite a bit, that the students that I receive as a teacher it's like a spiritual thing. Like, they're meant to see, I'm meant to have this connection with them. And I've always held this belief that as a teacher, I am also always still a student, and the students are teaching me how they learn, and they're teaching me something about myself, and they're a reflection of me. Even the worst students I've had, or not worst, I don't even want to say like worst, but I just mean even the most challenging students, because we've all had. If you're a teacher, you've always had. There's always teachers will have students who, yeah, maybe they challenge us in certain ways, and I wonder if this this student or other students that you've had, do you feel that that there's something in them that reflects back to you? And this doesn't always mean that you are, you're exactly that student, but I think that there's something to be said about whatever students come into our lives, and why, so do you feel that there's any sort of meaning, spiritual meaning behind that, the
Well, I
students that come
remember,
to
I
us?
remember Tim, and I wonder about him now. But see, I don't remember his last name, so it's very unlikely I'll find him now. He's a mature. If he's alive, he's a mature man with probably his own family and kids and maybe even grandkids and stuff. But I think. Uh, yeah, it was something in him that touched me. I remember, and I had empathy for him, and I knew that I related to his being on that line between going left or right, going in the wrong direction. I know that I had parents who were watching me and on me and making sure I stayed on the path, and I could see that he really didn't have a strong parental guidance, and he was in danger. And so I think that's what tapped into my soul when I was exposed to Tim every day, last period of the day.
So, it sounds like, yeah, it sounds like this student inspired. I mean, the fact that, in a sense, this student was a catalyst for this book
Oh
too,
yes,
because
yeah,
it's like it showed you something that
exactly.
made you realize people need to see who this person is. They're not just a hoodlum. They're
Right,
not just a
right.
troublemaker.
Not,
They're a
yeah,
real
no.
person that because people are complex, no matter what
Yes,
they
yeah,
do,
yeah.
there's so much that's going on behind that.
Yes, it was. I mean, the original title for the novel was Tim, was the name.
Mhm.
But we all agreed this line, I got a handle on it. It was a line that the father said in a drunken state. Uh, um, was even more appropriate because everybody thought they had things, had a handle on it. The dad, he thought he had a handle on his life, but he didn't. And Tim thought he was holding it together, but he wasn't holding it together. So yeah, we thought the title uh, was more appropriate, and it spoke to something. Tim it was just a name of one syllable word, and quite opaque. But and even with the spelling, it gives it a little attention. It makes you look deeper. What is that? I got it. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
on that's why I believe why they broke it up. And even for the space for the cover, it's like it is. You can sort of get it better, not all in a line like that. I got a handle, and it's just from the phonetic way spelling of the way the father uh, said it. And so yeah, we thought that spoke more to what was going on
Yeah.
in the
Well,
story.
I think this book is definitely something that I think everybody should definitely check this out. So if people want to purchase this book, where would they
Just
find
contact
it?
me,
Okay.
Don. Yeah, you just contact me at Donovan Mixon at gmail.com. Just contact me there.
Okay.
Yeah.
DonovanMixon@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Perfect.
If they want a copy, I have some copies.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. So, I want to ask one kind of question about this whole thing with education, because I think obviously what we're seeing here is that obviously education has failed Black children. So where do you think it has failed them the most, and where do you feel like it could be improved? Now, I know you said music education is one of those things. Is there anything else that you'd like to kind of bring up in that subject of sort of educationally? What needs to be happening in our communities in order for us to sort of get
But I like the
but
move. Yeah, I
yeah.
like the movement of, bringing more black literature in the classroom, in the courses, and my son is reading, I think, Black Boy right now by Richard Wright. I believe it was by Richard Wright. I remember reading Richard Wright many years ago, and and he's also being exposed to other people of color in terms of other readings, and I like that. I think that's very, very important, and this idea of the true history of America, inclusive history of America, the actual true history is very important, and more courses that promote critical thinking, of course, and civics. I was happy. My son, he has civics, and we suffer from that. Civics is sort of a way to promote critical thinking about about your government, how things are being run, and if people suffer from a lack of information about how their government is run, they cannot vote in an intelligent way, and they can't really effectively evaluate these people standing in front of them who wants to be their leaders, and they have all of this money, ability to try to manipulate thinking and perspectives. So it's hard to be strong against that unless you have these this education, this type of education. So that's what I that's part of what I would say offhand. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think that and I think that there's also people that have spoke about you know black organizations or black individuals and those that are able to because there are some people that are farther up in terms of the you know um, socioeconomic status, people that have certain amounts of money, and
Hmm.
some people are saying, well, yeah, those people should be there should be people that are investing into more black owned schools. Not to say that again, everybody deserves to have good education, but I do think that if there were more, if there were more, if there were more black people who are more well off and affluent, who would work together to create these schools, we could make sure that that our children are being taught about those specific things. Because when you think about it from the white perspective, of course they're going to focus on their perspective for their children. So I think it makes sense for us to do the same, and it doesn't mean that it wouldn't mean that if there were a black owned school, that white children couldn't come, or that it needs to be this
No.
sort of separatist thing. But I think that looking out for our people and being able to teach our children, whether it's through an actual school or through
Hmm.
it individually in the communities, make having certain things in place to make
Hmm.
sure that this
Hmm.
information is passed on to
Absolutely.
our children and to our youth. I think that where the schools fail, we can as a community succeed, and we
Hmm.
can proceed to teach to teach the real narrative, and say, well, this is what they're going to tell you at school. But even if we don't have those structures, there's still ways even now. And I mean, and I guess this is kind of part of why I'm doing a show like this and having people on here, intellectuals on here, so that there is the record. For the record, there are all these amazing people, because there's tons of people who unfortunately probably don't know who you are. And
Well,
that's why
yeah,
and there's people who know who you are, but I'm just saying there's certain people who
yes.
should know who you are and don't, for the reasons that I'm sure you can probably speculate, and I can speculate. So that being said, I want to also go to, we've talked about a lot of amazing things that you've done, and I want to talk about something you most recently um, did and are doing, and that is your course. So I know that you wrote a book on performance ear training. You have a course,
Yes,
and I want,
performance and
yeah, I
training. Let
want to
me
hear
see.
about
Where is
that.
yep, came out 20 years ago. Performance ear
Wow, that is
training.
so legit. That
Yeah.
looks like something that I would get in like a classroom.
You can, yeah, you can still get it in line. And that's, yeah, a picture of me from back in the day. And
Wow.
but yeah, performance ear training, and I've been teaching it for many years, and many years. And so uh, when COVID hit, I decided to. Well, I thought, what I'm going to do during this for my COVID vacation. Let's see. Besides plan to survive, yeah, that's number one. But the other thing was, I'll create this course, this online course, and right now it's live, live. And I have two sections going now. It's been, I launched it maybe 4 months ago, yeah, and I did one session, and so a number of those people decided they wanted to do a level two. And so in the meantime, though, I was advertised, and I now have a level one going, and level two began last night, actually. And so I have even person from Italy, and two people from Australia, and the others are Chicagoans. Um, and it's called performance ear training. Ear training is about the ability to proceed to receive the world in terms of the music through your ears, and be able to understand what you're hearing. So if you hear melody, you'll be able to decipher what the melody is, intervals and chords and so forth. And musicians, this is an essential skill that musicians need, and they're always working on the areas. So if you go for music education, you're going to have at least 2 years, 3 years of ear training, and that's what I was teaching at Berkeley. That's what I was teaching at Bilgi University, Istanbul Bilgi University in Turkey. It became a required course in the third year, and and it's called performance ear training because most of the exercises how I instruct you is to work in with a loose sense of time, and mostly in the context of a key, because most of our performance is in the context of keys, or a key, or shifting tonality, shifting keys, but discernible keys. And most of our performances working is in time, some sort of time. So I encourage you practicing in that way. It's based on several study concepts like harmonic bass lines, sing then play, inner hearing, tendency tones, tonal, well, it's harmonic tonal tensions, the straight line exercise. Um, it's based on a lot of concepts, and so that's what makes a difference. And the emphasis is on how to practice. And the origins of that is when I was in university and doing ear training. Well, it wasn't. Was it called ear training? It may have been called ear training. I'm not sure. It was really just sight singing, singing solfege, and out of a book of melodies. That's all it was. It didn't deal with all the different things that I do.
Yeah.
And so I remember I getting to the practice room, and okay, I knew what the assignments were, but I didn't know how to get from A to B. Like you watch somebody walk a tightrope. You watch it, but you have no idea how they get to the point where they can walk on a tightrope 30 feet up or something like that. How do you get there? You certainly don't start at 30 feet, right? So uh, so I really, over the years, worked on how to communicate to students, how to practice this, and then as a consequence, develop these techniques. And when I was at Berkeley, part of my service to the college, I did ear training experiments on my students and discovered a lot of things, documented, and out of this came a set of study concepts that I eventually wrote into a book, uh, and so here I am now. It's a course. It's a live music course. Eventually, it will be a series of different video lessons, but the live courses will still go on because that's really, really valuable. I see many video lessons online, and that's fine, you know. But people will. I have in mind that a few years from now, I'll have a lot of recorded videos that I'll be happy to sell you as a course, courses and stuff. But waiting, you'll be in a queue waiting to get into the live course.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's so important. And when you talked about, especially for anybody who's like a musician who wants to be a professional musician, but then also people that just want to like do it because they want to learn, or
Right.
just
Yeah.
get on a level of understanding music. Because I think that even if you can kind of, because when you can kind of see, and I always see music as like kind of like Morse code, like it's like a secret code. And like once you learn it though, and you
Yeah.
learn the language, you can see it's almost like there's inside jokes, especially with jazz. There's a lot of inside jokes and things in the music that people will, um, once you kind of know and can recognize, like for instance, um, when people do sort of, I can't remember like the proper term for this, but when people quote like in jazz music and in solos, people will quote
It is
other
quote.
well-known songs.
It's quote. It's
Yeah.
quoting. Yeah.
Yeah, so quote when people are quoting, but it's like you have to know the songs, and you also have to have enough of an ear to recognize that quote in context, in a different context, right? In the context of this other song. And so
Hmm.
it's like an ear training thing that that you have to be able to, or don't have to be able to do, but if you're able to do it, it becomes this thing that you're then part of this sort of, you know, almost like an inside joke. It's kind of something that, you know, if you understand um the
But it's
meaning.
also it's and also it's pleasant when it happens, pleasant for the listener because they're surprised. It's always it's you to the listener. It often it's a surprise because
Mhm.
they're thinking of one song and then suddenly they hear a little bit of another song in the middle of it. So it's
Yeah.
kind of and it kind of attracts the attention of the attentive listener, the person who's really paying attention,
Mhm.
and especially if it's a song that's not or a little phrase that's not a jazz song.
Mhm.
You quote, I don't know, some goofy song, some cartoon theme or anything.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and so
Mhm.
it's a device. It's a device and fun to do. I don't do it a lot, but every now and then, yeah, I will do it.
Yeah.
Uh, but ear training is essential, and it's a niche. I know that, so I don't expect uh, thousands and thousands of students, but enough. And I think there will be there's interest there even in these 4 months. There's a healthy interest, and I'm encouraged. So if anyone is interested, please go to performanceeartraining.com. Yeah, there it is. Thank you very
Yeah,
much
of
for the
course. Yeah.
performanceeartraining.com. And you can even, you can get into the form that says for a free 15-minute consultation, and we can just chat on the phone about what it is you do and what this can do for you. That kind, just informal kind of chat. It's I have a lot of vocalists this time in this session. A lot of vocalists, but I have guitar players. What good two guitar players? Yeah, two guitar players. Yeah, but more vocalists this time, and it's not unusual because vocalists they they maybe they have a different experience. Often will have a different experience than their instrumental brothers and sisters. And so they feel, and it is really their ears are their main instrument. I mean, people say that the voice is the first instrument, right? I just came up on this recently, and people say the voice is the first instrument, musical instrument. I think no, I think the ears are the first musical instrument, because I mean, where do you get the idea to sing? You know,
From your
through your
hearing,
ears, through
right?
you're hearing birds, you're hearing other things in nature. I'm not talking about you're in the city and you're hearing beatboxes and stuff. I'm talking about in the beginning. And so you hear a bird, you're hearing lizards and all kinds of other instruments making sounds that could be musical, coincidental, that sounds kind of interesting. And that people often will mimic sounds of nature and animals, other animals. So yeah, I believe ears are the first musical instrument.
That is actually a really good point, because I think a lot of people do, think, and even as a vocalist, I think, yeah, I don't know if I would say it's the first instrument, but I've always said it's one of the first things that you instrument in terms of making music. But I think that ears, I think that they are like the first thing, they're like the catalyst for music making. Like before, they are literally, like you said, the first thing that we actually do is we hear. Before we can even do anything else, we have to hear and listen, and then we emulate those sounds. We emulate the sound of our mother, or the sound of our father, or things like that. So I
In
think it's so
in
primal.
the womb, I don't have any memory of that, but I imagine you don't see much, but you do hear.
Mhm. Yeah. So I think that's so important, and I think that as a musician, one's ability to listen, and because there's so many musicians that they think, and they're not listening, and that's where their downfall is. Because if you can't listen and then make something that sounds good, not something that looks good on the page, not just something that looks intellectually sound, but something that actually sounds good, that appeals to your ears. So I think that that is a different perspective of approaching music through the ears, not through the
Yeah,
eyes,
and that you can as you develop your ears, you can just function better, and you will be able to access your ideas. Very often you have ideas, and they're there, you're in your imagination, but it's analogous to looking through a lens that's kind of out of focus. You notice you're looking, and you see something is there, but you just can't really make it out. I've had that experience when I imagine something and an idea, and then I'll go to the guitar, so I'm trying to realize it because it's out of focus. It's not
Yeah.
clear,
Yeah.
and maybe I'm successful, maybe I'm not, you know.
Yeah.
But to the extent that you can you want to bring together that intellectual and intuitive parts of your mind and soul, so that you can bring out what you're hearing and imagining in with more precision. You'll be able to, with good ears, you'll be able to learn much faster, learn music faster on the fly. You'll understand much more quickly. You'll take music cues much more quickly. You can teaching, you'll have an easier time as well, because you'll be able to understand quickly exactly what's going on when someone's playing.
Mm.
um, yeah, and writing your own charts, and knowing, of course, as you're doing this, you're studying, you're putting your music theory in action, all along the way. You're putting your
Mm-hmm.
music theory in action. Mhm.
Integration. It
Yeah,
sounds like what it does
exactly.
is helps you integrate what we talked about earlier with this sort of, right, we always learn things and we don't integrate them.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that this course is something that will allow, even if you do have experience with music theory in the past,
Right.
this will be a great course even for people who are beginning and people who are advanced, because you can really integrate in a more deeper way the things that you've already learned with music theory. So I think that this is an
Right.
amazing
Yeah.
course. And I really think that anybody who's watching this right now, if you are a musician, you need to check this guy out. You need to go to performanceeartraining.com and sign up for this course, because I just know, if you haven't been convinced already, I know that this person's the real deal, okay? He knows what he's talking about. And not only does he know what he's talking about, I know because I've played with him.
That's
And
great. We had a good time.
he's an amazing musician. So, not only amazing musician, amazing everything, like composer. He's an amazing author. I mean, we've just gone through all, we didn't even get through everything that you've done. There's so many things that we could have gone through, but we couldn't get through all of it, But what you can do is check him out. Okay, so go to his website, check out his performanceeartraining.com.
Hmm.
And if again, I'm going to show you guys, the last thing I'm going to show you is we have a testimonial from one of his students. And in case you weren't already convinced, here's another little piece for you.
I have known Professor Mixon since I was 18 years old at the Berklee College of Music. He was an inspirational, charismatic, and at times a bit intimidating professor, but one from whom I am really grateful to have had the opportunity to study with. Ear training is, of course, crucial to all musicians, especially musicians who want to play any kind of improvised music or who want to write their own music. And I am happy to offer Professor Mixon my highest endorsement without hesitation.
So yeah, so there we go. We had one of his students, and you can obviously, you're hearing the music in the background. I'm assuming that's his music.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously this guy's pretty freaking awesome, and you can tell because he's been taking this course. So I want to thank Donovan. I want to thank you so much for being on the Black to Business show with us and taking the time to share all this and to share your perspective. You are truly a gem, my
Thank you,
friend.
dear. Thank you,
And
Mira,
yeah.
for the opportunity to share with you, get to know you better, and with your audience. It's a great opportunity and pleasure. Thank you.
Well, I hope that you guys hope that you guys learned something. I hope that you guys really some of the things that we touched on. I hope that you guys will check out his book, Ear Training, even for the musicians. If you're not a musician, you can check out his book, because
Hmm.
the book is something that I think almost anybody can read this book and really kind of derive something from these stories and these characters and the things that we've talked about and the things that we've discussed as well. So again, I hope that everybody is having a wonderful, wonderful afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you whatever time it is that you are checking in with us. And we will continue this, the Black to Business show. We're going to have, I have some amazing people lined up as well. And so again, we were really, really grateful to have you on, Donovan. And thank you guys so much. We're going to see you. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
So,
Black to Business. We're a family, melanated we need to breathe, need to see the truth from the wisdom. Cause diamonds hiding beyond our pain, our name, our light, our plight. We're a family, melanated we need to grow, need to know, need to